what inspired us. How about the terror of not having a foundry to produce the sculptures that he was designing? We'd have to travel 1,200 miles just to go to a foundry to have the work cast, when I'm used to driving 15 miles into the foundry. So there was one inspiration.
Well, the main reason was the foundries are closing around the country in the United States, and Montana has lost all the foundries, and this is the last one that's open to the public to cast. So we needed something or a place to cast my artwork locally. So it was something that we felt like we had to do. But actually it's fun. Enjoy it. So you have your work locally. You can go to the foundry and check on the progress, make sure that it's the quality that you want, make changes. But if you own the foundry, then you can make lots of changes on your work and make custom pieces. It's even better. Foundries in the United States are all closing, and all of the foundries in Montana, except for this one, have closed. So we needed a place to cast my artwork that was close, that we could access locally and not have to drive 1,200 miles to it. So it was the right choice for us.
I believe that foundry was started in 1979 by John Olson and Jack Muir. They worked together to produce bronze sculptures for artists, and they had both worked for another person who owned a foundry up here named Eddie Powell, and Eddie Powell was related to Ace Powell, which is a known artist from this area. So that's how the foundry started. That's its origin. And from there, they continued to have success. In 1991, they built a brand new facility where we are located now at 461 Ash Road in Kalispell. By probably less than 10 years later, they built a second facility beside their first facility to do exclusive monumental work only, where they did only life-size pieces. So in essence, they had two plants, two production facilities where they created bronze sculptures. Most of them, the facility that we have is the one that produced the smaller pieces. So as the economy grew in the early 2000s, that facility was very big. By the time the economy crashed in 2008, they were forced to downsize, and by 2017 they sold the second facility to a different company to have a different business in it. So that is our neighbor next door. And so this facility has continued to warehouse the production of bronzes since it was originally built in 1991.
But now we're doing monuments too.
So everything has continued to be built in there, large and small. So it doesn't matter what size the sculpture is in the final outcome. This facility can handle all different sizes. And I assume that it would continue on that way. And we may come to a point where we need to add on, or maybe we will see a place that we need to move it to because it's more conducive for it. But at this point, everything seems to be working, and the way it was set up is still viable. So that's how we'll continue to proceed. To my best knowledge, there were more than one foundry in Kalispell that started, and each one of them generated a spin-off foundry. There were other employees that felt that they could do the same thing, and so those foundries also began. So there were several foundries in Kalispell in the late 90s, early 2000s. There was probably 15 foundries that were producing sculptures for people. So as an impact on the community, there was a lot of draw of artists to this area, And then the fact that they could have sculptures cast in bronze was very unusual and unique, a specialized skill. And that, to the best of my knowledge, that foundry had been operating for 44 years in Kalispell. So by taking this over, we're continuing on with 44 years of clients and 44 years of history of, success.
The process of casting bronzes is a very old process. It's been around for thousands of years. So we're actually continuing on a tradition that's established along many generations ago. So a lot of the businesses deal with modern technology and modern things. And the casting process deals with technology that's actually an old technology combined with a new technology. So there's historical relevance to it, and there's also a continuation of an ancient form of art. So it's kind of an exciting thing, combining the old technology and the new technology to create sculptures. Since it's been around for over 40 years, it's generated millions of dollars for the community by employing people, and the revenue has gone right back into the local economy. So it's been a great impact. At one point it had over 40 employees. So it grows and it shrinks depending on how the economy goes, but it has stayed consistent. But most of that money goes right back here locally. Not only does it bring in most of the money that the Foundry brings in comes from people that are out of state and out of country. So it's a lot of manufacturing has gone overseas to China, India, and this is a process or a company that stayed here in the United States for all these years rather than outsourcing to some other countries. And most of the products that it uses, so the sand and the wax and the bronze, is derived from the United States. So that's kind of nice too, to know that it's actually made in USA, and most of the components, most of the the source materials are from our country. So a lot of the revenue, the dollars generated, are from, you're bringing money in from outside our country or other parts of our country into our community, which is, I think, important. There's a lot of challenges with that kind of business. Some of it is sourcing the materials that you need, and it's labor intensive, so your challenges are working with other people that you're employing, and keeping things running smoothly, because there's no automation to it. Everything is done by hand from start to finish. So that's very challenging. So you have to have skilled workers that know what they're doing and be able to work quickly and efficiently. And if you don't have that, the business is not very productive. And that's, I would say, is probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
And then costs are going up with everything. So that's probably the second biggest challenge.
And then the other challenge, I think, is that we've jumped right in and continued on where the other owner had departed without any pauses. The company didn't really seem to close. So we have transitions of artists dealing with new owners, and how everything is completed or organized, or how business is conducted from one style of ownership to a new one. That would be the other challenge.
That's a big challenge too.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the process has been established, and most of the vendors that we use are accessible, so we just continued where the other owners left off. but we're giving it our own twist. So we're implementing some new technology to it and creating some streamlining for it.
Yeah, I think that perhaps the Foundry has continued to run because they did all types of casting. No specialty artists or one particular artist or a group of artists, but anybody. So anyone could walk in and have a piece cast if they had the money and the desire to produce a piece and to pay for it. I think that was key to that business.
They had loyal artists, loyal customers too.
But you guys cast with the Foundry previous to Kalispell Art Casting,
Mm-hmm.
correct? Were they open to the public like this one is?
They were. So this Foundry was so busy at one point in time that we had to go to another Foundry to be able to get our work through.
Do you think that's why they've been able to continue, is because they're known for their work?
That's part of it, but going back to the loyal customers, once the artists have been established there, they continue to return, produce consistent. So same color, same way of treating the metal, the same way that they produce the piece. It's all consistent. So when you go back to the same Foundry, you develop a relationship with them, and the Foundry understands what you're asking or what your expectations are, and then you have expectations of them. So it's a mutual. It benefits both the Foundry and the artist, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of the artists kept returning. They knew they could get quality work from there, and they knew what they could expect. The hardest part, I think, dealing with employees and working with their needs. I think that's the most difficult part, because everybody's specialized there, and it's a demanding profession for the people that are employed by the Foundry. So there's a lot of time required working with those employees to make sure that they're happy in the positions that they're in, and that they're also being fulfilled by the role that they have. I see the digital part changing everything about the Foundry. So we're going to continue the traditional casting process, but evolve into using the digital technology to enhance that. So we're able to take digital sculptures created digitally and bring them to real world using the old technology. And that is a huge change. That's only been able to happen in the last maybe 10 years. So we're actually in a revolution in the art world with the digital technology, but now turning those digital sculptures into something that's real life.
To bring young artists into the Foundry so they can produce their digital art, but have a way to produce a physical, traditional piece of artwork as well.
We used to cast with Joseph Bronze in Joseph, Oregon, so it was quite a drive taking the clay original over there when you've got something that's made of soft oil-based clay, and then driving it for six or more hours, especially in the summertime. So just that alone. The other aspect is, because it's many people working on a piece, you need to have the opportunity to go in there and be part of that process and check on what's happening and how each step of the process is going, to make sure that it meets our expectations. So having something close by is critical, especially if it's only a half-hour drive from here.
vision is to have classes at the Foundry, which would be open to the public. And so they can learn traditional forms of art there, working in different medias, and be exposed to the Foundry and see how the production of a sculpture occurs. So that's how the community can be involved.
We have tours. People can come in and see the process, so they can watch the pour in the molten metal, or they can see different parts of the process of creating those bronzes.
Is there a particularly memorable moment or achievement that you, while you guys, or that you can remember maybe before with the past owners?